in terms of pesto, it's about using your 5 senses as well, in terms of adding a lot of flavor, a lot of texture as well, because you can really play around with it in terms of when you're adding the nuts or when you're adding pasta. So we're going to go ahead with it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why I love this and why I chose to do it today, because it relates to a little bit more about what I do and what my speciality is. But if you are cooking along, we're going to need a handful of fresh basil, and we're just going to, it's just a very simple recipe, and you're just going to put it in, whip it up in a blender, so it will be a little bit noisy at some point, but we'll get some basil. So yeah, so you can use any sort of herb you wanted. You know, I prefer using fresh herbs because obviously of the pungency of the fresh herbs, and really trying to get your little one to be adventurous with fresh herbs and herbs in general. So after you've chosen your herb, we've chosen basil today, but you could go for parsley, you could go for coriander, dill. Dill is really nice as well. You could paste that over some fish, so that's really good. So right, so let's add in the spinach, and then we are going to put in about maybe 2 tablespoons of grated Parmesan. So I like to grate the Parmesan just because if you've made pesto before, you'll see that sometimes if you put a big blob of Parmesan, sometimes it doesn't whiz. So I like to put grated Parmesan because it's just easier, and I know it's definitely going to get into my pesto. Right, so that's about 2 tablespoons, so we'll pop that in there as well. And I've already pre-measured, but it's about 120 ml of olive oil. You can use another oil if you like. I wouldn't recommend a vegetable oil or anything like that. Olive oil gives it a really nice sort of earthy taste, so that's brilliant. And obviously if you're cooking with the pesto, you don't need to add any extra oil onto your dish, so that's really good. So yeah, we've got this in here. And then 1 garlic clove. Now, if I was probably making this, I'd probably put about 2 or 3. But obviously, we have to remember, we've got to remember that it's a little taste buds, and a little goes a long way. But we tend to forget that, I think, when we're cooking. But yeah, so I've just added 1 garlic clove, and then a squeeze of lemon juice. So a squeeze of lemon juice is really important because it really cuts through all the flavors. So if the basil is really pungent, for example, then this will really just create more layers in the pesto. So just a generous squeeze of lemon juice, and you'll be surprised actually. I mean, it looks like a lot, but you'll be surprised how well your baby can take to it. Like my little one, the other day I was in the kitchen and he was literally squeezing this lemon juice through his mouth, but maybe that's because during pregnancy I ate quite a lot of sour things. And they do say, on that note actually, they do say that your baby's already exposed to herbs and spices anyway, because if you actually ate it during pregnancy and obviously breastfeeding, it's transferred during the amniotic fluid and also breast milk. So yeah, don't be afraid to use herbs and spices. Right, and then the last one for this one is your choice of nuts. So you can use any nut you would like. I'm actually going to use cashew nuts today. The only reason I like to use cashew nuts is because it really offers really nice creaminess and a really lovely texture at the end of it. So I'm going to just pop that in there. Why I like pesto is because you can actually introduce allergens. So as you all know, nuts is an allergen, but we've been doing pesto with walnuts, pistachios, almonds. Oh gosh, you can introduce seeds as well. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, anything really. So that's why pesto is just such a brilliant thing. And in terms, I know I added spinach, but actually in terms of the kind of vegetable or something that you're using, because you really want to add enough, like a lot of nutrients and stuff in it. The spinach is full of iron, which is quite hard actually. I think especially for vegetarians, you know, babies who are on plant-based diets, they don't eat enough meat or they don't eat meat at all. So of course, adding spinach to something like this, broccoli, anything that's green, so kale, broccoli. You can add avocado to add more texture. You can add like roasted beetroot as well, which is brilliant. So yeah, you can do so much with pesto. But if you've got any like remaining roasted veg, then yeah, just whiz it, pop it in a blender, use the same sort of recipe, very similar sort of pesto recipe, and whiz it. So without further ado, we are just going to whiz it. You might need a little bit more olive oil depending on how much or what vegetable you're using, what nut you're using, and of course what herb you're using. So it's going to be a little bit noisy, guys, but bear with me. Wonderful. So I've actually used a NutriBullet today because I find NutriBullet is just so brilliant with, it's just so quick, so clever. We've been using it for ages, since we started with smoothies and since it came out, really. But I didn't really need to buy anything special for when Avir started weaning, just because I know there's a lot of stuff out there. But there's stuff in your kitchen that you could use. So food processor and NutriBullet will just do the job absolutely fine. So I don't know if you guys can see that. We've got lovely green. Yeah. Yes, it's really good. So with this, actually, what you can do is you can whiz it as little or as much as you like. But obviously, once you've whizzed it, you've whizzed it. But I like it because you can add more texture in terms of, whizzing it for less amount of time, so it's thicker. So your baby can actually taste the little bits of lumps of nuts. If you're using broccoli, for example, broccoli's got a brilliant texture in terms of the surface. So, she or he can really taste that. So really play around with it, because I think it's important, and this is what makes your baby an adventurous eater. And they will accept foods a lot more if you're playing with herbs and spices, and if you're playing with vegetables. But it doesn't have to be in a pasta, and I think that's probably the misconception as well. It doesn't have to be in a pasta. It can be over fish. It can be over, I don't know, grilled chicken. Stir it in some rice. If your baby's not had rice before and they really like pesto, try and think of something that is familiar to them in order to try and get them to taste new flavors. All right, so we whizzed it up, and obviously the recipe that I provided today is the pasta one. So I've got some pre-cooked pasta here. I've actually used, I'll just show you, I've used some baby pasta stars, but you can use any pasta. So depending on what stage your baby is at weaning, you can use sort of penne, you can use spaghetti, you can use fusilli, you can use all sorts of things. Actually, I was in Aldi a couple of weeks ago, and I found these brilliant things. And it's penne, but it's made out of green pea flour. Then you've got some chickpea, you've got beetroot and red lentils. So you can really play around with it. But yeah, choose any sort of thing you would like in terms of medium or what pasta, and pop it in. So you just stir it through. Probably good to have the heat up as well, so you can really break the olive oil molecules. So we'll whack that and pop that up as well. You just stir it, give it a quick stir. And this is such a quick recipe as well. If you're really stuck for ideas and you don't know what to give baby for lunch or for dinner, you can chuck chicken in this. You can put other vegetables on top of the pesto. So it's a great way to get your baby to eat loads of different things. Right, so that's heating up quite nicely. I might pop a little bit more in there. So I'm just going to pop a tablespoon of ricotta in here, and I'm just going to stir it through, just like so. Ricotta is brilliant as well because it's so easily, it just coats the pasta and whatever dish you're sort of making. You could use ricotta as well for stuffing chicken breast or anything really. It's a really good thing. So I found it really helpful in terms, because obviously Avira couldn't really chew cheddar or do anything till quite later, till about 8-9 months. I give them grated cheddar, but I think trying to give them different cheeses and soft cheeses, it's just expanding their palate even further. Right, and the final thing that I'm going to add is ground nutmeg. So ground nutmeg is one of the warming spices. It's something that really just lifts dairy, especially, I feel, the creaminess of things. So literally just going to pop a pinch in it. A little goes a long way, especially with the ground spices, because the oils they've probably been roasted, which means that their oils have really come out and they've got a lot of aroma volatiles, and then they've been blitzed. So you can imagine they're super, super strong. I can smell that from here. So we've actually finished our baby pasta now. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's a lovely luminous green color, but it's gorgeous. I mean, if you're doing baby-led weaning, if you had this with fusilli or penne, for example, they will be picking that, and you've overcooked the pasta just so that it's good enough for them to squeeze and to put between their fingers. So yeah, I hope it's been really helpful for you guys. I'm very passionate about it. So, and thank you so much to Weaning Week as well for having Tidy Tot and the Sensory Kitchen. It's been a great opportunity, really.